How's it going, comic book fans? Welcome back to another episode of Comic Drops, where we take a look at the new comics dropping this week and discuss whether they are worth your time. On today's episode, we're diving into the concluding issue of my favorite Valiant Comics and Alien Books series right now, Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded, issue number 4. This week we also have the drops of Rai, The Book of the Dark number 2, and Ninjak vs. Roku number 1. This is awesome. I can't remember the last time Valiant fans had 3 comics to choose from in 1 week. So, does Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded issue number 4 conclude with an explosive barrage of action, satisfying fans? Or is it a dud before delivery? Stay tuned to find out. All right, let's take a look at the story of Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded issue number 4. So finally, we have 2 consecutive issues where we have the same creative team. I can't believe it. Every other series right now seems to be swapping out members of the creative teams, but Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded issue number 4 has made it to 2 consecutive issues. Anyways, the amazingly creative Mauro Mantea is still on writing duties on this title, and his off-the-wall way of tackling a narrative is on full display in this issue again. Issue number 3 concluded with Bloodshot spawning a rocket launcher from the pocket dimension used by the spent shell chambers. And issue number 4 picks up right where we left off, with the rocket being fired at New Blood. And I'll give you one guess if it damages him or not. Hint, it doesn't. In fact, New Blood catches it and throws it back at Bloodshot. I mean, that's awesome. Unfortunately, Bloodshot dodges the rocket and hits the truck that Jesse, Magic, and Bloodhound are in as they're trying to escape this battle. Okay, let's keep count. Here is kind of comical action occurrence number 1. Then, in a rage, in an epic fashion, Bloodshot jumps up into the air with bravado, winds up his strongest punch, and decks New Blood right in the face, with the only result being a thunk sound effect. And then he immediately gets backhanded by New Blood to the ground. And here we have kind of comical action occurrence number 2. Now, a law enforcement helicopter has been circling the battle since the beginning of this issue. And with this next kind of comical action sequence, we learn why it's there. It's there because New Blood is going to use it against Bloodshot. As Bloodshot gets up, New Blood grabs the helicopter out of the air, hurls it at Bloodshot, and cuts him in half vertically. Yeah, from top to bottom, carved up like deli meat. So we have 2 finely carved pieces of Bloodshot lying on the ground, now with the Goldies trying their best to pull him back together. It's just awesome. Just another classic Bloodshot scene, courtesy of Mauro Mantea. All of a sudden, Jesse gets mad and tries to take a shot at New Blood also, only for Bloodhound to interfere. Now, Bloodhound is able to damage New Blood with a bite, but unfortunately, just as Bloodshot is literally pulling himself together, New Blood rips Bloodhound in half. This comic is all about dismemberment for some reason. And to continue that trend, Bloodshot spawns in a Gauss rifle that shoots tungsten projectiles at 4,000 miles per hour that heat up into plasma because they travel so fast out of the rifle. No matter the science behind this weapon, it's able to damage New Blood. Finally, we can gain the upper hand. This guy is going down. We then cut to Jesse and Magic trying to save Bloodhound, and then the only way to save him is to get him more protein, which Jesse takes as a cue to cut her hand off and feed it to Bloodhound. And of course it works. Then we cut back to the action and New Blood has found another way to thwart Bloodshot's efforts by hardening his skin so the Gauss rifle shots don't affect him. New Blood then forms his hands into giant claws, uppercuts Bloodshot, and impales him and then throws him through a house for kind of comical action occurrence number 4. Then, as Bloodshot is lying in the rubble with Bloodsquirt giving him a pep talk, he has an epiphany. Normally, Bloodshot needs protein to regenerate his wounds, but in some circumstances, according to this comic, he can absorb inorganic matter. However, this can affect Bloodshot's nervous system and brain functions. And to tally up kind of comical action occurrence number 5, after absorbing his surroundings, which I would assume would be the house he was thrown into, we get a hulked out rage monster Bloodshot with glass shards sticking out of his body. And then Bloodshot uppercuts New Blood, sending him flying off the panel, and proceeds to jump on top of him and Bloodshot smash. Until New Blood sends out an EMP pulse and wrecks Bloodshot's plans. As the shriveled up Bloodshot lays on the ground defeated, he says he's out of protein and out of ideas. Until he gets the idea that I am dubbing kind of comical action occurrence number 6. You remember that pocket dimension that Bloodshot has been using to pull weapons to reality, right? And Bloodshot decides instead of pulling weapons out of that dimension, he's just going to send a weapon in, specifically New Blood. And now we have New Blood floating around an alternate dimension, confused with an unlimited supply of weapons. Now, I don't know how effective this solution will be, but for now, New Blood is gone. I find the solution to dealing with New Blood interesting because it subverted my expectations for how I thought Bloodshot was going to deal with the threat, i.e. shoot it until it dies. I think this plants a seed for future events, with New Blood technically not being defeated yet. And the issue concludes with the gang getting back together and ends on somewhat of a cliffhanger. New Blood's blood has gotten into Bloodshot's blood, so I don't know what that means specifically, but I'm definitely intrigued. Overall, this issue hits all the narrative beats that I wanted it to and concludes the Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded story arc in a satisfying way. New Blood was presented as the anti-Bloodshot, and this series stayed true to that sentiment. Bloodshot could not best New Blood on strength and weaponry alone. He had to get creative with how he dealt with them, which in turn exemplifies Mantea's creativity as a writer. Considering Valiant's current slate of books and the quality of the storytelling in each, Mantea has done the impossible here. Create a cohesive and engaging story that has connections to the past, present, and future of the character, and simultaneously satisfy and subvert my expectations for this series. I want to take a moment to say thank you to Mauro Mantea for his hard work wrapping up this series in an awesome way. Awesome job, and again, Valiant, if you're watching this video, get him on another series soon. Now, let's take a look at the visuals of Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded issue number 4. Thankfully, just like I stated previously, we have the same creative team for 2 consecutive issues. And that means Rodrigo Rocha is back handling pencils for this issue, and the amazing Ezequiel Fernandez-Roel is on colors. This team has done excellent work in the past and continues to do excellent work here. Like I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of manga-inspired visuals for American comics, but I guess I'm learning to adjust because Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded is a visually striking comic that I just can't help but like immensely. The characters and locations within this issue are drawn consistently and with an energetic flair. When the more crazier things happen, like Bloodshot being cut in half or Bloodhound being ripped in half, again with the dismemberment, the visuals maintain their quality throughout. Additionally, the locations our characters visit are essentially cannon fodder, so they're not as important to the overall feel and narrative of this series. But what is here, though, is adequate enough to give readers a backdrop for the action. Also, Rocha is not afraid to draw hands and feet, which is again refreshing after reading some of those other books recently released by Valiant. Faith Returns. And seeing the action framed in interesting ways is a nice touch as well. Rocha incorporates a wide variety of shots to make this concluding issue compelling, like close-ups to show emotion or reactions, and wide establishing shots to show scale and size. There are even times when characters break the boundaries of their panels to further make this a more cinematic experience for readers. On the color side of things, we get a lot of complementary combinations from Ezequiel Fernandez-Roel. What I mean by this is a lot of the hues in this issue lean towards either green or red, Of course, this is a thematic choice on the side of colors, and I appreciate the way green and red are used to emphasize what is happening in each panel. When Bloodshot is on the offensive, we are presented with different shades and tints of green. When something abhorrent happens, like Jessie cutting her own hand off and feeding it to Bloodhound, the panels are awash in reds. In that scene specifically, Magic looks on in horror as she is bathed in red, and once Bloodhound heals himself, the scene transitions back to green. It is certainly a nice way to give a visual cue to the audience on how they should be feeling during each scene or panel. The greens used throughout the issue are also a callback to the gamma radiation produced by New Blood, and maybe even the Hulk as we get to see Bloodshot Hulk out during this battle. Overall, the quality of the colors when paired with the pencils makes for one visually interesting and entertaining comic book to read. And lastly, the trade dress is great, featuring awesome cover art from Brian Level on a cardstock cover and thick, glossy interior pages. From a visual standpoint, this book is setting the standard. Okay, let's sum up my thoughts on Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded issue number 4. The pros for this book are numerous. It has an excellent narrative, wraps up this story arc in a satisfying way, sets the standard for action comics, is visually striking, and sets up plot lines for future Bloodshot books and subverts the reader's expectations. The cons of this issue are, well, it ends, and I hate to see this creative team go. Again, Valiant, if you're watching this video, get this team on another book ASAP. I'm thinking Quantum and Woody. Overall, this series went from boring and basic to my favorite series Valiant is publishing right now, all in a 4-issue run. That's pretty incredible. It's been a roller coaster ride for sure, but Mauro Mantea, Rodrigo Rocha, and Ezequiel Fernandez-Roel are the dream team at Valiant in my opinion. I really can't thank them enough for their hard work on this title, and I can't wait to see what they're up to next. Well, that wraps up my review of Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded issue number 4. Of course, let me know in the comments below what you think about the conclusion to this awesome series. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe for more comic book goodness. Check your pull lists, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll discuss the surprising Rye Book of the Dark issue number 2.